Hello and welcome to ADHD Mums and the mini reset for the week, which is about why you wake up at 3 a.m. and why it's not just anxiety. If you wake up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning and think about every single thing that you did in 2019 that sucked, or that weird thing that you said when you were at high school, or that weird situation with a friend 3 years ago and what you could have done differently, you are not alone. This isn't necessarily just insomnia or just anxiety, but it can actually be really hormonal. And I think it's really time that we stop blaming ourselves for just sleeping bad when our nervous system and our hormones are really at play here. Now, Dr. Lara Bryden talks about this, and she explains that during perimenopause, which can happen anytime from 35 onwards, it's a very personal thing as to when perimenopause hits, our progesterone doesn't just dip a little bit, it actually evaporates. And progesterone isn't just about fertility or cycles. It's really a direct player in the brain's GABA. Now, if you don't know a lot about GABA, GABA is like your internal brake pedal on a car. It's the neurotransmitter that tells your brain, hey, we're safe now, slow down. A lot of people with anxiety will talk about taking GABA as a supplement. Now, when progesterone crashes, and it can start crashing in your mid-30s, but it's a very personal thing when that happens, your GABA can actually drop too. And that means that this internal calm down system in your brain can become a little unresponsive. It can feel like you want to relax, but your body actually doesn't really know how to do that. So you may want to relax, but your body doesn't even really understand how to make that happen. So when someone says, hey, just sit down and relax, it may feel really foreign. At that point, if you're somebody that feels like that, a really tiny trigger can actually register as a threat. So, for example, you may be somebody that hears a child cough and you get up panicking that they might be vomiting. A missed permission form at school could feel like really catastrophic. That thing that your partner said might feel really personal. Someone doesn't respond to a text message, it feels like they don't like you anymore. Those are some of the situations it could feel like. Now, it's different for everybody, but for some people, their nervous system doesn't actually down-regulate. It can kind of stay partially lit, kind of like a fire alarm with low batteries that go off randomly, but your batteries could go off at 3 a.m., for example. I have woke up at 3:11 a.m. for years. Why? I don't know. And it was like the most negative, critical thinking, and it was so difficult to sleep during that period. So, what does this have to do with cortisol? Now, a lot of people know what cortisol is, that stress hormone, that get up and go hormone. Now, it's not necessarily bad, but cortisol can really get dysregulated. And cortisol is supposed to kind of gradually rise up 6 to 7 a.m., peak mid-morning, and then like taper off coming into the nighttime. However, chronic stress, which a lot of the listeners I think will have chronic stress, and if you're also dealing with possibly perimenopause, this rhythm of the cortisol can just kind of flip over. And instead of getting like a gentle rise at sunrise, your cortisol can kind of spike right in the middle of the night. And that could be 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, or 3:11 a.m. for me. And it feels random or weird, but I would almost have like an alarm clock feeling at 3 a.m., like awake. And it would be so frustrating if my kids weren't waking up, but yet I'm waking up. And so the mother that's so desperate for some type of rest and sleep is waking herself up at 3 a.m. It was so frustrating. So if you're neurodivergent, on top of this perimenopause chronic stress, you've also got a nervous system that's already wired for like hypervigilance, rejection sensitivity, and neurodivergent women particularly are more prone to having had trauma. And that can be growing up in a neurodivergent house, possibly with addiction or whatever it is that's gone on, or maybe misreading social cues, getting yourselves into traumatic events, sexual assault. There's a big study in Europe that said that 9 out of 10 autistic women have been sexually assaulted. So a lot of us have got trauma, and this is where it can get quite tricky because suddenly your body, who's supposed to be at rest at night, is now kind of like primed for panic. scanning, reviewing every mistake you've ever made, and then like catastrophizing what could go wrong tomorrow. So then a lot of us, let's say you're doing the 3:11 a.m. wake up as well, or whatever your version of this is. I kind of would get myself back to sleep at like 4:30, and then 5 a.m. my child would come in. And then it was like I'd kind of only slept till 3:11 in the morning, and then I had a half an hour nap. But I had to go all day. And the sleep deprivation accumulates over time, which makes you feel even worse. I recently went to a GP and I attempted to get something to help me sleep. And his response to me was to give me some sleep hygiene tools, which was incredibly frustrating, let me tell you that. But what can we do? This is coming from somebody with lived experience of the 3 a.m. club. One thing that I do believe helps is to have a stable blood sugar before bed. A small protein fatty snack, like for example, boiled eggs, like maybe like a protein muesli bar, like nut butter, those type of healthy proteins and healthy fat snacks can really prevent some of those crashes, which contribute to the 3:11 a.m. wake up that happens to a lot of women. So having a snack before bed with protein and fat, actually has really helped me. The second thing that has helped me, if you look up sleep and how to get back to sleep, there's so many different opinions of it. You may be somebody who can turn on a meditation. You may be somebody that can count backwards from 100. It's a very personal thing. For me, I've started to just get up. So for example, I find that if I go down into a thought spiral, so it almost feels to me, and this may be different for you, like kind of like a tornado, and it's kind of circling me. And it might have start off with like a kind of an innocent thought. Like, remember that time when and if I actually allow myself to go into that tornado, it's like a shame spiral. I don't know what that is. It's like all of my most negative thoughts in a spiral. I feel like I can't get out. It feels like I'm stuck in a tornado. And the reason I say tornado is because it feels so unsettling, and it's anxiety. And the first thought is usually not that negative. It's like an entree to the negative thoughts. If I entertain that one thought, I will be in the tornado and I can't get out for like an hour and a half. For me, I have to see the entree for what it is and then ignore. Let's say, for example, the entree thought may be, I really miss my mum who passed away. And I could go, okay, yeah, I do really miss my mum. I wish she was here. And then it will spiral into, when she became sick, should I have gone home from Sydney, flown back to where she lived and stayed with her for her last 6 months? If I entertain that first thought, I'm done. 90 minutes, I will berate myself for being the worst person in the world and think about every single thing that I regret in my entire life. I cannot go down that road. So what do? I actually find movement to be helpful. And this is not for everybody. But for me, I usually go and fold clothes in the laundry. I do not touch my phone, because if I get on my phone, that's it. It's just too stimulating. I go and distract myself by scrolling. So at some point it becomes so boring. I'm so bored by the boring tasks that I'm doing. I will go back to bed and go to sleep. But if I lay there, I just find that the spiral happens, the tornado happens. So think about what it is that happens for you when you wake up, and think about different ways that you can tackle it that work for you. It's going to be different for everybody. But if yours is to get up and do boring household tasks, that a lot of people find that really weird. My husband thinks that's so weird. Get up and fold laundry. You should lay there and go back to sleep and count back from 100. Now, I could count back from 100 6 times and still not go to sleep. The other thing is to actually label it. So when you're thinking about that 3 a.m., if you're a 3 a.m.er, label it for what it is. This is actually a cortisol spike. It's a hormone response. It's not a shame spiral that's going to happen every single day. And it's not urgent that you go into the shame spiral. You don't have to solve your life at 3 a.m. You just need to be able to go back to sleep and deal with it the best that you can. So yes, if you think it's hormone related and it's medical, you should seek help. You should go see a GP, naturopath, integrative doctor, whatever you want to do. Absolutely seek medical help and advice. the key message from this mini reset today is it may not just be anxiety, air quoting. It may not be just something that you do. And you may need to look at your diet, your hormones, and the big picture, but also don't feel like you have to lay there. If you need to get up, move. If you need to do something different to what looks for everybody else, do that. A lot of people think that the most regulating thing you can do is to meditate. Now, I'm a very hyperactive person. Meditating doesn't necessarily calm me down, but movement does. If you need to pace, do it. So in closing, you are not bad at sleeping. You will not wake up every single night for the rest of your life at 3 o'clock in the morning. You may be living in a body that has carried too much for too long and your nervous system might be out. You may have a hormone issue. It isn't necessarily a flaw, but it can be a real spike. It's worth looking into. Think about different ways that you can soothe it. Try it and see what works. And in a message of hope, I did end up going back to a different GP and I managed to get something that really has helped with my sleep. And so I've been able to do that. Now, what works for some doesn't work for others. I've been using clonidine for sleep for the last few days, and I found it's really helped me. But obviously, seek help from your psychiatrist, from your GP. That's not something that's going to help with everybody, and that's not a medication that everyone can take with whatever else it is that you take. And a lot of people use Intuitive to help them sleep, or melatonin. But the message is, please go seek help. There is hope. And if you recognize the tornado that I was talking about, look for the entree thought and opt out, because I have never had anything positive come from going into that tornado. There has never once been an outcome that I've thought, wow, I've seen that different. I've reframed that. I've healed that. I've reached out to somebody that I wish I had of. It's never happened for me that way. It is like a shame spiral 101. So take care of yourself, journal what works, seek help if you need it, get professional advice. So next time you sit up bolt awake at 3 a.m. and you're wired, you're reviewing your calendar, you're wondering what's wrong with you, I just want to go to sleep, just remember, you may be living in a body that has held too much for too long. You may be living in a world that expects you to do it all and then just smile. But your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It might be trying to protect you. It might be doing its best with the dysregulated hormones, a nervous system on high alert, and a lifetime of being that person that may have to always manage the fallout. So you really need gentleness, structure, and support from professionals, and a system that doesn't treat your exhaustion like a personal failure. You've already started just by listening. You don't need to push harder, you need to feel safer. I'll be here next week when you need a reset. Please follow the podcast, please review it, send it to a friend, and jump into the Facebook community and connect in. Thank you so much for listening.